Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Open Mic, the show here on my movie vlog, where all it is taking your comments, your opinions, your ideas, your questions that you want to get in here, as well as a few video questions and audio questions. Yesterday, of course, was our first episode, and it was a lot of fun. Now, how do you get... First of all, this show is mostly about the live questions, but if you want to send in a video or an audio question, how do you send in a video or audio question? It's simple. You just email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and put open mic in the subject line, and then make sure to attach your video or your audio file. And listen, guys, keep it to 20 seconds or less, okay? Got to keep those questions, those audio files and those questions to 20 seconds or less, audios or videos. So anyway, there's that. Now, to get things started today, I'm going to take the first like 10 to 15 minutes here and go through a bunch of the chat questions that came in yesterday and this morning that I didn't get a chance to get to. From there, we'll go to the audio and the video questions, and then I will go to the live questions that you guys who are watching live are going to be sending in. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started. And we're starting off with, what are we starting with? We're starting with Rodrigo Ramirez, who wrote yesterday, I've been wanting to get into some Star Wars tabletop role-playing games. Any recommendations? The only Star Wars tabletop game I play is X-Wing. Pardon me. Well, you know what? Actually, other than the Star Wars role-playing game, because I'm a dice, pencil, and paper kind of role-playing game guy. Other than that, the only tabletop Star Wars game I've really played has been X-Wing as well. So other than that, my big recommendation is get into role-playing. Get into some serious, real, old-school role-playing games. Better than any Xbox or PlayStation game. And I love Xbox, PlayStation, my computer games. I play them all the time. But nothing beats a tabletop, pencil, and paper role-playing game. All right, thanks a lot, Rodrigo. Next one, Chris Martin writes, thoughts on Bad Santa 2? I hated it. Dumb and Dumber 2, love that. You know what? I really like Dumb and Dumber 2. And I mean, a lot of people didn't like it. It's not as good as the original, no. But I really like Dumb and Dumber 2. But as far as Bad Santa 2 goes, I'm with you. I didn't like it at all. Matter of fact, I've just blocked Bad Santa 2 out of my memory. Now, it had its moments. There were some laugh-out-loud moments in Bad Santa 2, for sure. But just overall, not as high quality as the original. John K. says, what percentage of Super Chat money does YouTube take? I believe it's 70%. Sorry, 30%. I believe YouTube takes about 30% of that. They keep 50% of all ad money, I think 30% of Super Chat money, I think. Orok Usaki Shinigmami writes, do you think it's time to see Mortal Kombat reboot, John? Well, the only thing that really determines if it's time to do a reboot is if there is a big enough audience that really wants it. And I think the studio has kind of stuck their toe in the waters a couple of times to gauge the wider audience's appetite for a new Mortal Kombat. And I think they've found there's not that big of an appetite for it, actually. There's a small, passionate group of us who'd be very excited to see another one. But I think when they've kind of put out some feelers, the studio's found that there's not actually as much interest in a Mortal Kombat as you might think. As much as I would think, at any rate. So, no, probably not. Probably not right now. I think probably to really get resurged interest in Mortal Kombat, they need to put out another Mortal Kombat game that becomes seriously popular, and then maybe you can go back to the movie. But I don't think there's going to be another Mortal Kombat movie coming anytime soon. Aussie Nerd writes, are the Razzies still relevant? Well, the Razzies are as relevant as they've ever been. They've never been serious. Like pardon me, the Razzies are just a bunch of fun. A group of people who just want to poke fun at Hollywood and do things in a little bit of a different way. They have never been serious. The Razzies have never been a serious thing. That's why they make up brand new categories every year, just to be silly and ridiculous. And nobody thought, for instance, Jennifer Lawrence was nominated for Worst Actress. Nobody seriously believes Jennifer Lawrence was the worst actress this year. As bad as Mother was, she gave a great performance. But this is just a way of jabbing at Mother. The Razzies were never meant to be relevant, nor were they ever meant to be taken seriously. They're just kind of a fun little thing to do, and I enjoy them. I think I have fun with them, too. Justin Ward writes, your views and reports are so frigging diplomatic. YouTube's so full of toxicity and sanctimonious opinions. You're a breath of fresh air. Hats off to you. Well, thanks a lot, man. I just try to give you my honest opinion on things, and I'm glad that for you they come across that way. So thank you so much for sharing those kind words. Those kind words, I mean. Chuck Kim writes, "Hey John, which is more affecting for you, the Jonathan/Clark scene in Man of Steel, or the Alfred/Bruce scenes in the Dark Knight trilogy?" I'll be honest with you. As much as I like the Dark Knight trilogy, I never felt anything in the scenes between Alfred and Bruce. Never did. Almost everything else about those movies is just amazing, for sure. But as far as the scenes between Alfred and Bruce, I never thought they were had that much weight to them, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, some really cool lines are some people just want to watch the world burn. I mean, that's great, but I didn't feel anything between the two characters. Whereas the Jonathan Kent and Clark Kent scenes in Man of Steel, I thought those were... Was I supposed to let them die? Maybe. Oh my God! Those scenes. So by far, I'll take the Jonathan and Clark scenes in Man of Steel over the Bruce and Alfred scenes in the Dark Knight trilogy. Aussie Nerd writes, "What if every movie was a remake?" To some degree, every movie is a remake. I mean, there is nothing that is 100% original anymore. There's nothing that is 100% free of anything we've seen before. It just doesn't exist anymore. So I guess you could say, in a way, every movie kind of is a remake to some degree. Let's see. Rob McDonald writes, "John's overrated movie list from last 2 years, Arrival and Lady Bird. Which one do you like better?" Oh, by far I like Arrival better. By far, because I really like Arrival. I thought Arrival was overrated, but that doesn't mean I thought it was bad. I thought it was quite good. I enjoyed Arrival. For some reason, some people started running around and started saying, "Oh, John hates Arrival." Why? Because I didn't give it a 10 out of 10? No, I thought it got a little bit more praise than it deserved, but I thought it was quite good and I enjoyed it. I can't say the same thing about Lady Bird. I didn't enjoy Lady Bird. I wish I could be cool, and I wish I could fit in with everybody else who's raving about it, but I just didn't think it was that good. But hey, that's the beauty of film. That's the beauty of the subjectivity of film. Robert writes, "Are you still a Bills fan? Did you dump us for the Patriots? Here's what happened. I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which is just a stone throw away from Buffalo. So, growing up watching the NFL, I was a Buffalo Bills fan because it was right across, the falls from me. And I was a die-hard Buffalo Bills fan for a long time, all through the Jim Kelly era and stuff like that. Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith. I mean, I used to love watching the Buffalo Bills play. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls. I mean, come on. What happened, though, was I'm a fan of coaches. So, of course, obviously, I'm a fan of Coach Levy. But I'm a fan of coaches. And when the Giants beat the Bills, I just thought, Coach Parcells really outcoached the Bills. And I became a big fan of Coach Parcells. And then when Coach Parcells went over to the Patriots, I kind of then became a fan of the Patriots. I did not dump the Bills for the Patriots. What happened was the disgraceful Bush League bullshit way the Buffalo Bills treated Doug Flutie. Doug Flutie, who just gave them win after win after win after win. Some jackass backup young quarterback comes in and plays one game before the playoffs. Then Doug Flutie's ready to go, and they go, no, we're benching Flutie, we're going to play this kid. And then they lost. At that moment, I was a huge fan of Doug Flutie. I know this is sports talk, guys, but this is a little bit of background. But at that moment, I still have a place in my heart for the Buffalo Bills. I do. I was really happy to see them make the playoffs this year. But at that moment, they ceased being my team, per se. And from that moment on, the Patriots were my team. So, again, I still keep an eye on the Bills. I still have a special place in my heart. I got really happy when I found out they made the playoffs. But I did not dump the Bills for the Patriots. I became a fan of the Patriots, and then the Bills acted like jackasses and made me as a fan. They turned me off as a fan because of the way they treated their starting quarterback. Anyway, that was a long answer to a short question. Sorry about that. Green Monkey writes, let's see here. Any news or hope on a Logan's Run remake? Well, the one filmmaker who was really trying to get a Logan's Run remake done, has, just been fired recently from the Queen biopic. So, I mean, Bryan Singer, he was trying to get a Logan's Run movie done, and they even announced, I remember about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, they even announced, like, that he was developing Logan's Run, and then that fell apart, and then there was another attempt, and that fell apart. So, look, there are enough filmmakers that love the Logan's Run concept. There are enough filmmakers that love it that I think it will get done at some point. I'm just not familiar off the top of my head, when something new is going to come out of it. Moeen Khan wrote, new Dundee trailer dropped with Chris Hemsworth. It also has an IMDb page with the release date set for June. Is this real? I still don't think it's real. Mentioned that today on the John Campea show. I still don't think it's real. I mean, it's got an IMDb page with no cast, no director, no anything listed, and yet they're putting up trailers. I still do not believe that this thing's real. Is it possible that it's real? Possible, but I still don't buy it. Kayla's Menon writes, thoughts on Shahrukh Khan, the actor? Ever see him in an MCU movie or DCEU movie? Just going to be straight up honest with you. I don't know who you're talking about off the top of my head. I don't know. I probably have seen 2 or 3 movies with him, and I'm just not connecting the name, but I don't know the name off the top of my head. I apologize for that. Koba writes, how long till Avatar gets knocked out of the top spot? Well, what I think you're referring to is the fact that Avatar is the all-time worldwide biggest box office movie ever. And let me pull up the actual full number on that. Let me go to Box Office Mojo here for a second and pull up. I should have... I should always have this website ready to go. I don't know why I didn't. All-time. Worldwide. Where's worldwide? There it is. Okay, so Avatar. It's going to be a long time, man. It's going to be a long time. Because Avatar is the #1 worldwide film of all time with almost $2.8 billion. The next biggest movie is Titanic with almost $2.2 billion. That's $600 million separating first from second. That's nuts. That's nuts. I mean, just think about that. The difference between #2 and #1 is $600 million. Enough money just by itself to consider a movie a hit movie. $600 million is how much separates #1 from #2. I do not see anything catching Avatar anytime soon. Anytime soon. Unless Star Wars Episode 9 comes out and it is embraced as the greatest Star Wars film of all time by everybody, maybe then that would have a chance. But even then, I don't see that happening. Yeah, man, I think we're all going to be grandparents before we see that Avatar record get beat. I really do. That was Kayla's Men. Oh, no. Sorry. Kayla's Menon writes, do you think Finn will die in Episode 9? I think his near sacrifice in Episode 8 is a foreshadowing no. Kathleen Kennedy's already talked about how they're getting their plans for, like, the next 10 movies after Star Wars Episode 9, and she included in that list Finn. Movies involving Rey, Poe, Finn, BB-88, BB-8. So I think we are not going to see Finn die anytime soon. Ben Rayner writes, I'll be Brace and say I am more excited for Venom than Solo. Look, I'm excited for Venom. I think I'm a little bit more excited for Solo, but look, there are a lot of Star Wars fans, even long before The Last Jedi, who are... yeah, looking forward to Solo, but not really jumping up and down with excitement about it. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Venom, there's some big curiosity about Venom. A lot of people think it'll end up being trash, but I find even a lot of people who think that movie's going to be garbage at least are intrigued. It's like, like, this could be interesting. So I think there are some people out there that are absolutely more looking forward to Venom than they're looking forward to Solo. Tony writes, any chance Luke learned how to cheat death in The Last Jedi? Possible. We know that Rian Johnson, because he's been putting out some social media stuff, we know he's been reading the Jedi Path. So, maybe there's something in there about that, I'm not sure, but it is possible. However, that was supposed to be a Sith trick. That was supposed to be a dark side trick. So I don't know if that's the case. What I do think is interesting is I believe Luke is dead. Okay, I believe Luke is dead. However, I think there's a 2% chance that maybe he's not. And that him disappearing was just a curveball thrown at the audience. Because to us, when a Jedi just disappears, that means they died. But maybe he didn't die. I don't know. Like, if I had to put $5 down, Luke is dead. For sure. Like, absolutely. But I'll give it 2% chance that maybe he's alive. But not because of a Sith trick. Out of time, Back to the Future fan writes, what Marvel character do you want to be in the MCU next? Bishop. I always thought Bishop would be a great standalone hero character. When you understand his story, his background, the way his powers work, I've always thought Bishop would be a great guy to use. Chris Martin writes, I know Luke is a Force ghost now, but I want to see him kick Kylo's ass so bad. Well, hey, Yoda came back and did some physical stuff. So, I mean, who knows? First of all, a 2% chance he's not dead, but even though most likely he's dead, maybe as a Force ghost, he's learned to do more. I mean, remember Obi-Wan's words to Vader, if you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Maybe that's Luke. Maybe Luke's going to fulfill that. Chris Parker writes, aside from Star Wars role-playing game, are you a fan of tabletop games? Settlers, Ticket to Ride, Star Wars Miniatures, Dungeon Crawler? Ann and I are a fan of tabletop games. We've become big fans of Settlers. I think the first 4 games of Settlers that we played with groups of people, Ann won all 4. It instantly became one of her favorite tabletop games. So yes, we are big fans of tabletop games, and Settlers is definitely one of those games that I'm a fan of. All right, Sam Fisher writes, what do you think about the images of Brie Larson from Nellis Air Force Base? Haven't seen them, to be honest, so I can't really comment on that. Cobra writes, would Mark Hamill be a good live-action Joker? No, I love Mark Hamill dearly. He would, and he's a great Joker voice, but no, I do not think Mark Hamill would be a good live-action Joker. Sam Fisher writes, I'm from New York City, so Super Bowl 20 or 50, whatever the LII is worthless to me. Sorry about that, man. You guys had a rough year this year. It was supposed to be the Giants' year this year, too. Very odd year. Very, very odd year. Let's see. Ian Nguyen-Du writes, Captain Marvel will be the new leader as she's the most experienced, and Black Panther will become the benefactor, assuming Stark dies. Look, I don't think that's a bad guess. I don't think that's a bad guess. Because with Captain Marvel being set, I believe, in the 80s, she will be behind the scenes and in secret, but she is experienced, and she's very, very powerful. Arguably, maybe she'll be the most powerful of all the Avengers. So, that is definitely a possibility. Devontae Brown writes, John, did you ever see the 3-part BET New Edition movie? I haven't seen it. I don't watch a lot of TV movies, to be honest with you. So, I haven't seen that one. Chris Warden writes, where do you put Edward Zwick in the category of great directors? I loved his work from Glory, Last of the Mohicans, The Siege, and all the way up to The Last Samurai. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think he directed Last of the Mohicans. Double check that, but I don't think he directed Last of the Mohicans. But at any rate, he's a great director. He's a wonderful director who's made wonderful films. I wouldn't put him on that upper echelon of filmmakers, like, you know, where Martin Scorsese, Kubrick, Spielberg dwell and inhabit, but he's definitely near the top. He's definitely up close to that upper echelon. Johnny Oseguera writes, since there is a standalone Joker movie in the works, supposedly, would you like to see Superman, Red Sun, or Batman Leatherwing? I'd love to see Pirate Batman. Well, that's a stretch. I've talked about Red Sun before, as a matter of fact. Red Sun's a really cool, like, comic story, but it's an Elseworlds kind of thing. What if Superman, instead of landing in Kansas, he landed, like, in the Ukraine or something like that? And instead of growing up defending truth, justice, and the American way, he defends, you know, the hammer and sickle. You know, what if that happened? It's an interesting story. I don't think you can do a motion picture about it, because I think too many people go, what the hell is this? You could do a DC animated movie about it, like for home video. I think that would probably be the better release for something. I just don't think the overall general movie going on, so we get on board with it. Rick Keir writes, when is Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer? I want that instead of Infinity War trailer. Well, look, man, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a number of movies away. We still got Black Panther coming, and then we got Avengers Infinity War, so they're probably not going to have trailers for 3 individual movies out at the same time. That's a little convoluted, so probably not until we get closer to Avengers Infinity War, I'm guessing. Just a guess, but that's what I'm guessing. Let's see. Connor Diaz writes, what are your predictions for 2018 midterm elections? Oh, I got none. I got none. And look, this country has shown me politically it can do absolutely anything bonkers. So I have no predictions whatsoever, Connor. Tyler D writes, Luc Besson once said he wanted to make a sequel to Leon the Professional, but Natalie Portman is too old now. I think she's completely capable of doing a sequel, i.e. Annihilation. Your thoughts? I don't think there's a lot of studios being willing to hand Luc Besson a lot of money right now. He's had a little bit of a rough go lately. And unless I'm mistaken, but I'm almost positive Luc Besson... Let me just pull this up. Valerian movie... Let's see. I'm pretty sure Luke directed Valerian, the City of a Thousand Planets, if I'm not sure. Just let me double check. Yeah, Luc Besson directed that. And that lost shitloads of money, man. Shitloads of money. He's not been on a great streak. He's had some hiccups. And honestly, I think Leon the Professional is so far removed now, I just don't think there would be interest in it. I really honestly just don't think there is enough support in a potential movie-going audience to justify it, and I don't think there are any studios who really want to take a risk on Luc Besson right now. So, I mean, I don't know. Anything is possible in this business, absolutely for sure, but I just don't kind of see it happening. Now, as far as Luc Besson goes, he does have a couple things in the works. He's filming a movie called Anna right now, which I did with Cillian Murphy and Luke Evans and Helen Mirren, which could be interesting, but I just don't see a big hunger out there for a return to that, to be honest with you. Connor Diaz writes, love you. When do you think Daredevil Season 3 will air? No idea, but for me, man, Daredevil cannot come soon enough. I love Daredevil. Let's see. Lori Scott writes, just got home and don't know if you stopped Super Chats yet. If so, sorry, just wanted to send love. Watch every day and on Patreon. Keep up the filthy. Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate that very much. Third Man writes, regarding Disney not taking chances with characters, sexual orientation, diverse casting, refer them to that film called Remember the Titans by Disney about 19 years ago that touched very strong topics. Yeah, but that was 19 years ago. Look, Disney has been making movies about the Marvel characters. And the Marvel characters, as we know them, have predominantly been white dudes. Look, I have no problem with the way the MCU has built up to this point. I have no problem with it. But now that you've gotten over the hurdle, now that you've gotten over the hump, now that you are so well established, it is time to diversify it up a bit. I don't like the idea of taking Thor and making Thor a woman now. I'm for the idea of introducing the existing female characters that are so great already. Don't backtrack it out by going, oh, let's take somebody everybody loves, Iron Man, and now let's make Iron Man a woman. That's not how you do diversity. If you don't have some really great, compelling existing characters, then make some. Make some new great characters. Take that liberty. You own Marvel, for heaven's sakes. Do it. Anyway, Tyler D writes, The Professional and Darkest Hour is one of my favorite Gary Oldman performances. What is your favorite Gary Oldman performance? Look, there's lots of great Gary Oldman performances for sure, but The Darkest Hour is his finest work. It's his finest work, and it's going to get him the Oscar for best, and not just a nomination, it's going to get him the Oscar for best performance. This is going to be Gary Oldman's year. Chris Martin is writing, what hoodie are you wearing? If you're talking about the hoodie I was wearing yesterday, that was my hoodie from Blizzard, and it's a World of Warcraft hoodie. And I love that hoodie. Thank you for asking. The Iceman 101418 writes, welp, 2 huge snubs in directing. Denis Villeneuve gets snubbed for the 2nd time, Sicario. And Martin McDonagh is my best director this year. Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. I think Jordan Peele did a very good job with Get Out. If you saw my review for it when the movie came out, you know I love that movie. He shouldn't have been nominated for Best Director ahead of Steven Spielberg, Martin McDonagh for Three Billboards, which, okay, here's my biggest thing. The director's number one responsibility is to get the appropriate and the best performance out of his actors. To communicate to the actors what is supposed to be happening, because the movie is in the director's head, and therefore to guide the directors to bring out the best performance out of them that they can. And the three leads, all three of the main characters in Three Billboards, Frances McDormand, pardon me, Sam Rockwell, Woody Harrelson, all three of them get nominated for their respective acting categories. The movie gets nominated for Best Picture, and yet he's not nominated for Best Director? What? What? To me, that's insane. And obviously, Denis Villeneuve for the very solid work he did on Blade Runner 2049. And I'm sorry, I know everybody gets bored of Steven Spielberg, but what Steven Spielberg did with The Post was damn special. So, I mean, there's three directors I can name off the top of my head that should have got the spot above Jordan Peele. Again, I thought Jordan did a great job with the movie. I really do. But better than McDonagh? No. Better than Denis Villeneuve did? No. Better than Steven Spielberg did? No. Anyway, that's just my thing. Anyway, Epic Dub Time 23 writes, Best Daniel Day-Lewis movie? Greetings from Montreal, Quebec. Probably There Will Be Blood is my favorite. I mean, he's done... We're either talking about, My Left Foot or Last of the Mohicans or Lincoln. He's so good in Lincoln. I'm going to say my favorite movie of his and probably my favorite performance of his and the best of his career came out of There Will Be Blood. And finally, before we go into the video and audio questions, Gregorio writes, watch every day. You're an inspiration to do what you love. Oh, thank you so much. I've been reading that Darth Bane saga in the Star Wars Legends, and I love it. Would you like to see films based on some of these stories? Sure, why not? It's a good character. There are some good stories there. So I'll say, sure, why not? Don't get me wrong. I'm not jumping up and down saying put that over this or put it over this. But yeah, if they were to announce tomorrow that they're going to make some films based on the legend stuff of Darth Bane, yeah, I'm all for it. I think that'd be great. All right, so with that part done now, that took a little longer than I thought. I apologize for that, guys. Let's move on now to some of the some of the recorded stuff that you guys have sent in to me. And let's get things started here. And the first video message today comes to us from Jay Raynard. And Jane Raynard sends us this.
Hey, John. So I just watched the Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic UFC card the other night, and what a card, eh? So I'm just wondering who your favorite UFC fighters are and what your dream matchup would be. Mine would be GSP versus Anderson Silva. See ya.
Well, my favorite UFC fighter is George St. Pierre. Partially, admittedly, because he's Canadian, but also partially, there's never been anybody to dominate his division like him did. Him and Anderson Silva are the two guys who dominated their divisions like nobody else ever did. And then George St. Pierre retires for a number of years, comes back out of retirement, and beats the middleweight champion to hold his second belt, the middleweight title. So he's my favorite one. I think my dream matchup would be an in his prime Anderson Silva versus an in his prime. You think I'm going to say George St. Pierre, but I'm not. Captain America. Captain America, the heavyweight champion. I think that would probably be my favorite, like in his prime, because when you're looking at the two of them, one has got all the skills, all the striking, the movement, the Brazilian, cobra in many ways. He's just insane. When you look at the other, you're talking about a guy who in his prime, because remember, he didn't start losing fights till he got into his 40s. It was heavyweight. I think he became heavyweight champion at 40 or 41 or something like that. Anyway, or reclaimed the heavyweight title. But you're talking about a guy who in his prime was the most suffocating fighter. He could put you against the cage. He could smother you, wear you down, dirty box you like crazy. And so a fight in their primes, the two of them, to me, that's the fight I'd like to see. All right, let's move on now to the next one. This next one comes to us from Joshua Wisdom.
Hey John, been a long time fan since AMC. Glad to see you're doing your own thing and thriving. I was wondering about The Last Jedi score. I thought it was one of Williams' best, but no love for it so far at award shows. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, obviously, you sent me that message before the announcements this morning. Awards, buzz, and love there is, because John Williams, once again, is nominated for the Academy Award for Best Score for his work on Star Wars The Last Jedi. We talked about this on Star Wars Talk Tuesday a little bit earlier today, that Star Wars The Last Jedi is now the recipient of 4 Academy Award nominations, which is great for it, and one of those is the John Williams thing. So don't worry, guys. He's getting the love. He is getting his love. All right, let's go to the next one. This one comes to us from Mark Rudy, who sends us this.
Hi, John. Thanks for the open mic. When I look at directors, I see Stanley Kubrick as the apex. Reason being, he's got top 5 films in at least 5 genres of film, whether it be war, dark comedy, film noir, sci-fi. Stanley Kubrick covered them all. Is there any other director who has had such a great catalog in so many different genres? Thanks a lot, and bring on the filthy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg has done every conceivable genre of film and had every one of the genres that he's put his fingers in have at one point or another gotten a lot of Oscar love. You're talking sci-fi, you're talking fantasy, you're talking action, you're talking period piece, you're talking drama, you're talking some comedy, you're talking Steven Spielberg is a guy who has done it all when it comes to style of film. You know what I mean? And that's one of the main reasons why, to me, Steven Spielberg is the greatest director of all time. So when I think of the apex of directors, I think it starts with Steven Spielberg, just because of the sheer diversity that the guy has shown over decade after decade after decade after decade. He's just an unstoppable force. And that's why I just love it, and I love it. And look, here's a great example. The Post just came out, which is nominated for Best Picture, one of my favorite films of the year. And in just a couple of months, a completely different kind of movie, Ready Player One, is coming. I mean, that's just an example of the type of diversity that Steven Spielberg has, and why I think he is the king of the hill when it comes to that stuff. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is a group question.
I'm Kenny.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Jake. And our question is, what is your worst movie-going experience at the theater?
My worst movie-going experience at the theater, and I've told this story before, is easily me going to see Jim Carrey's The Number 23. That, to me, was by far the worst movie-going experience I have ever had in my life. It was terrible, mostly because, and only because, we had this group of teenage girls sitting behind us. And I often have groups of teenage girls sitting behind me, in front of me, beside me, and they're usually wonderful. But this pack of hyenas just would not shut up. Just would not shut up. They weren't even trying to be discreet. Like, look, I don't mind if the people around me every once in a while lean over and whisper something and talk just a little bit, but they're trying to keep their voices down a little. That doesn't bother me so much. I mean, it's you still don't want to do that too much, but it doesn't bother me, because you know what? At least they're showing they're showing that they're aware of other people around them, and they're trying to be more polite by keeping it really low and keeping it quiet and whatever. But this pack of hyenas sitting behind me and my buddy just talking straight up, like just talking like this. Oh my gosh. That reminds me of Rob. Remember what Rob did in class last week? That reminds me of what he, at that level. And I seriously thought my buddy, who I was with, was just going to turn around and just go to jail. I thought he was going to turn around and just beat the shit out of this group of teenage girls. He was infuriated. And I remember he turned to them and used some expletives that I won't use here on my show, because they're pretty harsh. It's like, will you effing seize? You can figure out what he was saying. Shut your effing mouths. Like, just brutal. And they're like, whatever. It's like, and then finally, I think the theater staff came and got them. But that was by far the worst movie-going experience I ever had. It was just brutal. Thankfully, that is very, very rare. Out of the thousands of times I've gone to the movie theaters, that type of experience has been extremely rare, like to that extreme. So I'm pretty lucky that way, I guess. All right, this next one comes to us from Sean Breening. All right, and this is what Sean has to say.
So for an extended cut of the Justice League, why couldn't they look back at the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 where they clearly used footage that was not ever meant to be seen by the public, and it still appeased the fans, it worked out well, and then release it digitally instead of physically, and it might cost less. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I still don't think that works for a couple of reasons. One, there's a big difference between releasing a variant cut of the film 20 years later or whatever. And, you know, if they want to do that with Justice League 10 years from now, do something like that, that's fine. Versus create, all that's going to do is create more hubbub. It's like, well, which one's the real version of the movie? Is it this one or is it this one? Not to mention, yes, it's expensive to package it, Blu-ray it, ship it around the country, all that kind of stuff. But you're talking about millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that they would have to spend, because a lot of these shots are green screen shots and have whatever, and you're going to have to put in all the visual effects and work all. You're talking millions and millions of dollars. And here's the one thing, and this is the thing that people don't like to hear, but it's the truth. This big cry and demand for a variant cut of Justice League is, a lot of people like to think there's a whole ton of people. They're not. They're a microscopic fragment. Like, everybody will say, but John, the petition to have a Zack Snyder cut of the movie released has 160,000 signatures. Okay, 160,000 signatures. That's great. That's roughly, what's the math here? I think that represents like less than 1%, or around 1%, roughly 1% of the people who went to go see the movie. That 160,000 people that signed that petition, that everybody makes a big deal about and got all the attention, everybody went to sign it, 160,000 signatures. If the average movie-going ticket's $10, then that means that 160,000 people represents $1.6 million of box office. Compared to the 600. So it's actually less than 1%. So that 160,000 people represents less than 1%. And that is not a now, maybe if they had, you know, if they had 104 million signatures, or if they even had, like, say, 35 million signatures, at that point, even Warner Brothers has to look at that seriously. At 160,000 signatures, that's less than 1%. That in no way justifies spending, they already spent $300 million on this film. There no way justifies putting up more tens of millions of dollars to just deepen the divide between the fans of the existing movie as it is and unhappy fans who want a different cut of the movie. Putting out two different versions of the film, there's no justification for it. There's just none. And when you say it would appease the fans, who? I'm a fan. It's not going to appease me. And I'm a fan. I don't represent everybody, for sure. I don't. But you can't just say, this is what the fans want. Well, I'm a fan. Don't I count? I don't want it. I know a lot of people who are fans of the existing Justice League and don't want... I mean, hey, if they put out a Zack Snyder cut, would I watch it? Yeah, maybe I'd watch it. But I don't just put down blanket statements and say, the fans want this. No, about 1% of the fans do. They're a very vocal 1%, for sure. But the fans aren't asking for it because I'm a fan. I know a lot of people who are fans who are not asking for it. So, you gotta be careful how we use that terminology. All right. Last audio question of the day, and then I'm going to go over to the live questions. Here's the last audio question of the day. This one comes to us from Tony Wagner.
What's up, John? I was wondering if you ever considered creating your own IMDb or Letterboxd account so that after you see a movie or a TV show, you can post it on that account, give it a rating, so that us fans can keep track of what you've seen more out of movies or TV shows. It'd be really great if you did that. And keep up the good work.
Probably not. And the main reason is the same reason that I don't give ratings in my movie reviews. Because ratings don't mean anything. Because giving something a 7 out of 10 doesn't mean anything unless everybody agrees what 7 out of 10 means. And to me, I've explained this before, but to me, 7 out of 10 is a solid score. Me giving something a 7 out of 10 means I like this movie. That's just 3 digits away, 3 numbers away from being perfect. 7 out of 10, that means I like that movie. It's a solid movie. Well done. But I've given 7 out of 10s and had people look and go, well, Joe, why did Campea hate that movie? Campea, hey, everybody, Campea hated that movie. He just gave it a 7 out of 10. What? 7 out of 10 means I like it. Things go, no, if it's good, then you give it a 9.5 minimum. And if it's really good, you give it a 10. Because we live in a 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 society. If anything's remotely good, everybody's like, oh, that's 10, 10 out of 10. Everything's 10 out of 10. If something's remotely not good, 0, 0. Everything's 0, 0. Everything's 0 or 10. And so there's just no point to me giving scores in my reviews or giving scores on some kind of online aggregator. There's just not really a point to it. So I don't want the constant headaches and debates of, if I say something, hey, I'll give something a 6 because I thought it was good, but it didn't live up to its potential. Hey, watchable, I'll give it a 6. Inevitably, then get bombarded with tweets. Why are you saying this movie sucks? Why are you saying this movie sucks? I didn't say it sucked. I said it's okay. It's pretty good. It's not bad, but just not great. So I gave it a 6. Oh, a 6 means failure. No. No. In a scale of 0 is the worst, 10 is the best, 5 becomes your tipping point. 5.1 means it leans towards okay. Leaning at 4.9 means it's leaning towards it's not okay. That 5 is the middle line. So if I give something a 6, that means I'm saying it's on the good side of the middle. But that's not how a lot of people see it. So there's just no point in me doing, in me giving scores like that. So I just don't give scores. In my movie reviews, I just tell you what I think about the movie and leave the rest up to you. And so if I'm going to do that in my reviews, I'm not going to hop on IMDb and start giving scores somewhere else when I'm not even giving scores in my reviews. You see what I'm saying? So that's why you probably won't see me do that. And that's just my own. I'm not saying anybody else needs to do that. I'm not saying other film critics shouldn't give scores. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying my experience has been kind of a negative one giving scores. So I just decided to stop giving scores or ratings. But that's just me. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm talking more. You know I have a cough. And it's getting a little bit bad. I might have to pop. I've been trying to go through this whole show without using the halls. But I think I'm going to have to at some point here. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to the live questions. But before I do, let me jump on and do my shameless plug, my 1-minute commercial break for my Patreon campaign, which is the thing that makes these shows even possible. Check this out. We'll be back in 1 minute and we'll go to the live questions. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, guys, a special thank you to all of you guys who are already Patreon supporters of mine. You guys are the ones who make this show possible. All right, I should have mentioned this earlier. I didn't, guys. If you haven't sent in a question yet, don't send in a question anymore because I am running a little bit. I've still got some time here, but I'm running a little bit tight. There's already a whole ton of questions that came in, so I'm going to get through as many of these as I possibly can. We're going to start with Sam Fisher, who writes, how are the Emmys, Grammys, and Tonys picked? Is it an Academy like the Oscars? And have all these Star Wars saga movies been nominated for original score? I honestly don't know much about the Emmys, Grammys, or Tonys, to be honest with you, so I really can't answer that. And off the top of my head, I don't think the Star Wars saga have all been nominated for scores. I don't think, but I could be wrong about that. I'd have to spend some time here and open up some windows and look that up and do some research. But I'm not sure, to be honest with you. So maybe you guys in the chat board, you can do some searching around and let Sam know the answer to that. Next question comes to us from Chris Martin, who writes, favorite comedy sequel? Mine's Dumb and Dumber 2. Comedy sequel? Rush Hour 2 is great. It's one of the rare things where the sequel was much better than... It's one of the really rare comedies that where the sequel was better than the original. I might be forgetting some. Again, I would have to think about it. So maybe after I'm done the show, I'll think of 15 other films, comedy sequels that were better in my head. But for now, I'll just go with Rush Hour 2. Ian Nguyen-Du writes, people are saying James Franco was snubbed a nomination because of the allegations. Was he, and did he deserve to be nominated? He wasn't snubbed. I don't care what anybody says. He wasn't snubbed. He was not nearly as good as Gary Oldman. He was not nearly as good as Daniel Day-Lewis. He was not nearly as good as Timothée Chalamet in Call Me By Your Name. And I honestly don't think he was as good as Denzel Washington and Roman J. Israel Esquire. So no, he wasn't snubbed. I'm sorry, he was not snubbed. And it had nothing to do with the allegations. I love The Disaster Artist. I love that movie. And I think Franco was great in it. But maybe I would have slipped him in for Daniel Kaluuya's nomination. Maybe? But that you're talking about the 5 spot. If you're arguing over the 5 spot, then it's not a snub. So, no, I don't think he deserved to be nominated. I think he was great. I love him in that movie. But I just think there are other people who also could have gotten a nomination over him, to be honest. So, I think Tom Hanks was better in The Post than James Franco was in The Disaster Artist. So, that's just my opinion on that. Ben Rayner writes, if you could pick a 10th movie, would it be Logan? Well, I would have put Logan in the top 5, so obviously. For me, if I could pick a 10th movie to put in that 10th spot or create a 10th spot, yes, I would have picked Logan. I don't know that the Academy would have, but I would have. Angel Chang writes, many people argue that Incredibles 2 will easily make $1 billion, but Solo comes out 2 weeks before release and Jurassic World 2 1 week after. Your thoughts? First of all, I don't think, you already know I said, I don't think Incredibles 2 is going to make $1 billion. And I don't think it needs to be a huge success. I think it'll make in the $700 to $800 million range, and that'll be a huge success. I don't see it hitting $1 billion. So now I don't really think Solo or Jurassic World are gonna affect it too awful much, because like I said, I think 2 weeks separation is more than enough. And remember, this is the time of year when most people go to the movies than any other time, so that compensates for the competition. But I still don't think it's going to make $1 billion, even though I don't think the competition is going to be an issue. Chris Martin writes, did you see Goodbye Christopher Robin? I wanted so bad to see it. Yes, I did, and I loved it. It's fantastic. Domhnall Gleeson is so good in that movie. If you get a chance to check it out, by all means, go and check that movie out. Chris Martin also writes, I went to Vegas this year to see Celine Dion. Unfortunately, she was ill. I know you love going to Vegas. Have you seen any shows? I've gone to a bunch of shows in Vegas, yes. I will be honest, though. I go to Vegas about 5 times a year, and I mostly just go to eat in the restaurants, hang out with my friends, and play poker. So, I mean, considering how often I go to Vegas, you would think I'd see more shows, and I've seen a number of them. But when I go to Vegas, you'll either find me in restaurants with my friends or playing in a tournament in a poker room somewhere, because that's just what I like to do when I'm in Vegas. Lavarsky2 Icy writes, Which award show is more legitimate to you? Kids' Choice Awards or Golden Globes? This is the only time I will ever say this. I'll actually say that the Golden Globes are a more legitimate award than the Kids' Choice. So there you go. That's the only time I'll say the Golden Globes is a more legit award. John Salvi writes, "Hey John, been watching since the AMC days. Thank you so much. My favorite show of all time is MASH. Amazing how they could blend comedy and drama together." I watched the MASH when I was younger. I watched the MASH reruns because my parents really liked the show, so they would have it on every once in a while. So I would watch the reruns as a kid. And you're right, it's amazing. And if you ever get a chance to watch the original movie, the original MASH movie is really great too. They're the one that the TV series was a spinoff from and based on. I would love to see them do another MASH movie. I think you could totally do another MASH movie and it would be a big success. Koba writes, "John, your opinion on the film A Clockwork Orange?" That's like asking, Koba, that's like asking, what's your opinion on Godfather? It's great. It's wonderful. It's a fantastic, iconic film. That's my opinion on Clockwork Orange. Chris Martin writes, "Any news on the Wicked movie based on the musical?" The last I heard, it's supposed to be coming out in 2019, I believe. And it's got its screenwriter who's done a lot of TV and stuff like that. That's the last I've heard of it, though. The last I've heard of Wicked is that it's coming out in December of 2019, and it's got a writer on board. That's the last official thing I heard about it. I'll look into it and see if I can find out anything more. Hardboiled Entertainment writes, "I hate saying this. I don't think The Street Monster deserved a nomination for the Post. Seemed to offer game, aloof, and stilted even in quote-unquote private." I disagree completely. I mean, hey, all films is subjective. You saw it a certain way. That's totally fine. Your opinion is every bit as legitimate as mine. But I disagree with you vehemently. I was floored by Streep's performance in The Post. Completely floored by it. I thought she was incredible, the way she played that character. It just sucked me in and completely made me believe it. And I thought she was incredible in it. I personally do believe she deserves that nomination. I'm glad she got it. Chris Martin writes, "Favorite Harry Potter film? Mine is Deathly Hallows Part 2. I completely concur." Here's an interesting thing. I think my least favorite Potter film is the third one, the one where I think Gary Oldman's introduced, which is most Harry Potter's fans' favorite is Harry Potter 3, and that happens to be the one I like the least. But yeah, my favorite is also Deathly Hallows Part 2. Stefan Gonzalez writes, "Have you watched Guillermo del Toro's Troll Hunters on Netflix starring the late Anton Yelchin? I know you're busy with everything, trying to sell you on it. I have not watched it. Anne has watched it, and I know Anne likes it a lot. She hasn't seen season 2, because I believe there's a season 2 out now. But anyway, she's talked about Troll Hunters a lot. She's a big fan of Troll Hunters. I have not watched it, though, but my wife is. Michael Anderson writes, "I am truly baffled that Lego Movie and Lego Batman Movie didn't get nominations. I haven't met a single person who didn't love the Lego Movie and Lego Batman. Come on, it's gold." If I remember, I have to go back and do my research. If I remember, I think there was some kind of technicality about Lego Movie not getting nominated, but Lego Batman Movie was in the short list for animated feature this year. How Ferdinand, and no disrespect to Ferdinand, but it's not a great movie, how Ferdinand or Boss Baby got nominations over the Lego Batman Movie is completely confounding to me. I don't get it. I really don't. Because that Batman movie, some people have argued that Batman Lego movie is the best DC movie we've gotten in the last 5 or 6 years. It's fantastic. I'm not saying that, but it's a fantastic little film. I prefer the first Lego movie a little bit more, but the Lego Batman movie is awesome. I just don't know how it didn't get nominated for Best Animated Feature. Once again, proving my point that they should just do away with the Best Animated Feature category. I think they just need to get rid of it. Chris Martin writes, "The fight choreography in Man of Steel is amazing. I love the Jor-El and Zod and Superman and Zod fight. Love it. I think the combat and the fight scenes, the action in Man of Steel is some of the best action we have ever had in any comic book movie ever. Ever. I'm with you, Chris, completely on that. Or Curtis. Yeah, no, Chris. I'm completely with you, 100% on that. I love the fight scenes in that movie. They're fantastic. They're visceral. They don't do too much quick jump cut editing. I feel drawn into the action. And it's spectacular and awe-inspiring. I just freaking love the fight scenes in that movie, man. Curtis Lopez writes, do you think operas could work as movies? Not filming a stage performance like the Fathom events, but a straight-up movie with opera performances. Well, I don't know. The trick there obviously becomes, can you draw in people who would not otherwise go to operas? So, it's a good question. I think it's questionable. I think it's questionable that you could actually pull that off, because not a ton of people like going out to the opera. So, and then could you convince a lot of people who would not normally go to an opera, go to a movie that's an opera? I don't know. And I'm not disrespecting opera at all. I'm just saying the reality is the majority of people don't go to opera. So can you make a business case to do a movie based on an opera? Now, I'm not sure. I'm not going to say no, but it's a tall order. It's definitely a tall order. All right, Jacob Brown writes, wife doesn't think this is live. Prove her wrong. Hi? Hi? We're live. I mean, so that's the best I can do, I guess. I can stand up and pull out. No, I'm not going to say that. My brain thought, no, John, don't say that, and I'm stopping myself from saying it. But yes, Jacob's wife, this is live. Comic Doctor writes, hey, John, this may be tough to answer quickly, but how would someone with a treatment for a movie idea for a popular franchise like Star Wars get their work seen, and how does one protect themselves? Well, it's almost impossible. Most studios do not take unsolicited script ideas. They can't. Because if they allowed people to send them script ideas, then if sometime in the future they just happen to do something that just happens to be kind of similar to some script that somebody out there sent to them once, now they're open for a lawsuit. Studios do not take unsolicited scripts. The way to get a script seen, and nobody likes to hear this because everybody wants the easy answer, but the reality is this: you have to get a literary agent. Studios will deal with agents, real agents. How do I get an agent? That's the toughest thing in the world, is to get a reputable agent to take you on. But all you can do is look up agents, send them materials if you can get that far enough. But getting an agent is almost impossible. It's the toughest thing in the world. Actors, friends I know who moved to LA to become actors, they have the toughest time trying to find an agent. And writers, it's almost even harder to get a really good, reputable literary agent, but that's the only way to do it. And I know everybody just wants, tell me the address to send my screenplay idea. I know you're not saying this, Comic Doctor. I'm not saying you're saying this, but I'm saying most time when I get people asking me this, what they're really looking for is, what's the magic button I press so I can become a famous writer? Who do I send this to? What address do I send this to so J.J. Abrams will read it? And everybody gets really sad when I tell them it ain't going to happen. It's next to impossible. You got to first be one of the best writers that anybody in your city has ever been. Then you got to be good enough to get the attention of a literary agent, get a literary agent actually to bring you on, and then maybe through that process, you'll get your script or idea seen by a studio person, but it's tough. It's really, really tough. Next one comes to us from Lincoln Johnson, who writes, hey, John, could the Academy make a supporting child actor, actress category? Thanks. Nope. I mean, they could, but that'd be stupid. Terrible idea. Terrible idea. Don't make consolation prizes at the Academy Awards. I do not like the idea of participation awards. If a kid's going to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor, let them be good enough to be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. If they're not, then don't create a participation award for them to get it. I firmly believe that. That's another reason why I don't like the Best Animated Feature award. It's a participation award. It's an award so the Academy doesn't have to worry about, oh, damn, once again, the best critically rated film of the year is an animated film, but nobody wants to nominate it for Best Picture. That's why they created the animated category. And I don't like it. I do not want participation awards, so I do not want them to create more categories for a child actor. And then what's next? What's next then? Best Italian actor. Best actress between 18 and 21. Best, and then everybody gets an award. It just becomes like that useless sport boxing. Every 1/4 pound has its own weight division. And there's 735 guys running around out there calling themselves world champion. Because what champion are you? I'm of the IABF-CQ14BF Federation champion of 163 and 1/4 pounds. And then everybody, they're just giving everybody awards. Just give everybody an award. Everybody gets a ribbon. Everybody gets a ribbon. No, I don't want it. I don't ever want it. Keep the awards special. That's my opinion anyway. Thanks for the question, man. Cobra writes, favorite movie depiction of Dracula? I love Lee and Lugosi's a close second. Boy, as much as I'm not a big fan of, like a huge fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, Oldman's Dracula is actually pretty good. So I might go with that one. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's the best Dracula movie, but his performance in that depiction of the character I thought was really interesting. Stefan Gonzalez writes, thoughts on John Jones in the UFC, wasted talent. Yeah, he's a total waste. Somebody born with all the natural gifts in the world and is just a jackass, number one. An idiot, number two. And a habitual cheater. You have the world at your feet, man. Don't do cocaine. Hey, you hit and run a pregnant woman. Don't run away from the scene. Don't take performance enhancing drugs. Don't just stop being so stupid. And honestly, I'm done. I hope John Jones never fights in the UFC again. And it is a shame. He's one of the most naturally gifted, talented fighters the UFC has ever seen. Absolutely. However, he's had too many chances. And as a fan, I'm done. I'm done with John Bones Jones. Charlie15Z writes, who's more evil, Kylo or Vader? They've both killed countless people, but I say Kylo since Vader turned because he wanted to save his loved ones from dying, whereas Kylo seemed more selfish and self-centered. It's a good debate, man. Who's more evil? I'm going to go Vader because I believe Vader, in the midst of his darkness, was more evil. Kylo is more immature. And I think by the time we get to the end of The Last Jedi, he's evil. But I think he's just starting being evil. I think up to this point, he's just been a bratty kid who is a perfect victim to be influenced by the dark side of the Force. Absolutely. But I think I totally see your point. You might be right, Charlie. You might be right. I'm still going to lean towards Vader, but you may be right. That's a really good debate to have. And maybe sometime we'll talk about that on Star Wars Talk Tuesday. Luke1234 writes, have you heard that Ed Neumayer is working with MGM? Oh, and writing a new RoboCop movie. Yeah. That will be a sequel to the 1987 classic. Look. I think everybody's getting too carried away with this. This is another example of, hey, a script's being written. 500 scripts get written in Hollywood every day. Let's not get carried away that just because somebody's working on a script, that means it's happening. Studios, they commission tons of scripts of tons of ideas and tons of concepts to be written and developed all the time, but maybe 2% of them ever actually get much further than that. So I have heard about that, but I would caution everybody, I think there's a 90% chance that it doesn't happen. A 10% chance it does. It's possible. But I would say there's a 90% chance this is a project that never actually becomes a movie. But who knows? Everything's possible in Hollywood. We'll see. Everything's got to start somewhere. Interweb Shows writes, with Star Wars The Last Jedi getting sound editing and sound mixing Oscar nominations, what's the difference between those two categories? Okay, so one is the actual coming up with the sounds. And believe me, these are two very different disciplines, okay? One is coming up with what sounds are in there, what sounds do we use, what sounds will create this atmosphere and all that kind of stuff, okay? So that's the one discipline. The other discipline is a totally different discipline, although it sounds like no pun intended, it sounds like they're very similar. The other one is like then properly taking all those elements created over here and mixing them and giving them just mixing them perfectly together so they create the right atmosphere. Their sound design, their sound mixing. They are two different things. And you can be forgiven if they sound a lot alike. For sure, they sound alike. And you can even be forgiven more for that since this year the same 5 movies got nominated in one as got nominated in the other. But they are two different disciplines done by normally two different groups of people. Although sometimes people like Ben Burt would do them both. But they are two different things. But that's the way the difference. The sound design is making the sounds, coming up with the sounds, figuring out what sounds should be used in a certain scene. The sound mixing is then taking all those audio elements, mixing them and blending them together in such a way to create the perfect atmosphere that your scene is going for. So that's basically the difference between the two. Although somebody who works in sound could probably give you a much better definition than I just gave you, but that's the simple explanation, I guess. Lincoln Johnson writes, "My sister has a basic understanding of Star Wars. Could she go into The Force Awakens without having seen the original trilogy in a while? Does a refresher help?" I think The Force Awakens, you just need the most elementary understanding of the original trilogy, I think, to watch The Force Awakens. I personally think she'll be okay without a refresher course. A refresher course is always helpful, but I personally think she'll be okay. Brandon, I'm going to just try to get through all the ones here. I'm going to rush through these last few ones here. Brandon Torres writes, "Why does the Academy rarely nominate action, comedy, or sci-fi for major awards? And why no nomination for Logan? Seems they're only interested in dramas." No, they're just interested in what they think are the best films of the year. That's just it. And quite often, comedies aren't the best film of the year. Quite often, a lot of the sci-fi films aren't best film of the year. I would make an argument that this year Logan should have been, but look, the categories were stacked. It's not like the best picture nominees, there was a whole bunch of them that didn't deserve it. And look, we gotta stop making excuses for films that we love not getting nominations. Oh, it's just because they don't like these. No. It's just that they don't have the same bias for these movies that we have. Look, what movie has won more Academy Awards, has never had another movie win more Academy Awards than it? Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Sci-fi, fantasy, action, and adventure. It is the ultimate geeky movie. It won 11 Academy Awards. No other film in film history has won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. It's never happened. No one's ever won 12. And I don't know that anybody ever will win 12. Heath Ledger wins Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards. Star Wars was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. You got a movie like The Shape of Water that is nominated for Best Picture and might win Guillermo del Toro Best Director as well. At its core, that's a geeky film. It's got very dramatic elements, but so does Logan. So I just think we as fans of genre films, I think we look weak when we make excuses like, oh, the Academy just doesn't like these movies. No, they do. And they have awarded them before in the past. But not everybody's favorite movies are going to get nominated every year. There are like 500 movies came out this year. There's 9 nominee spots. That means every year there's going to be lots of people who their favorite films don't get nominated. Doesn't mean we make excuses for why they didn't get nominated. And I think we got to, as fans, we need to avoid doing that. Ethan Hunt writes, "Hey John, thank you for being a critic who likes The Last Jedi without jumping on a high horse and thinking you're better and smarter than those of us who didn't." Well, let's be clear, Ethan. I am better and I am smarter. But it's not just... No, I'm just kidding. No, hey, look, man. All film is subjective. I'm sure I've got films that I don't like that you like, and that's fine. I like The Last Jedi. It didn't work for you. That's fine. That's the great thing about being a movie fan, man. Is that we can have different opinions and different experiences with these movies and still be on the same side. And so I thank you for your comments. I'm really glad you value that. So do I, man. Patrick Glanville writes, "Many consider Asimov's Foundation trilogy the best sci-fi books ever. Have you heard anything about it being adapted into a film or TV?" I think there have been several attempts over the years. I can think of a couple off the top of my head. Oh, I'm taking over the halls here. I think there have been several attempts over the years, but it never really came to fruition per se that I can think of. Certainly there are movies and television shows that are clearly influenced by those books. But I can't think off the... This is always tough doing live. I can't think off the top of my head when it ever got really close to happening, but I'd have to think about that. It's a great observation, though, Patrick. Let's see. Brandon Torres writes, "Better trilogy, Apes, Dark Knight, or Captain America?" Take Apes out of it. Apes is great, but It's not on the same level as the Dark Knight trilogy or the Captain America trilogy. Everybody gets mad at me about this, but here it goes. The Captain America fans get mad at me for this. The Dark Knight fans get mad at me for this, but here it is. The best single movie out of the 3 Captain America films and the 3 Batman films, the best single movie is The Dark Knight. But if I was going away to a deserted island for 1 year and I could only take one of those 2 trilogies with me, I think I'm taking the Captain America trilogy. If I could only take one movie out of the 6, I'm taking The Dark Knight. But if I had to pick one set of 3, either The Dark Knight 3 or the Captain America 3, I'm probably taking the Captain America 3. I just think it's, on average, is a little bit higher than the Dark Knight trilogy, whereas the Dark Knight has the single best movie. So anyway, that's just the way I see it. Verdal Videos, Viral Videos writes, if they would have removed the animated film category from the Oscars, do you think that Coco would have had any chance for Best Picture? Yeah, I do. I think it would have had a shot at a Best Picture nomination. But the Academy doesn't have to worry about that. It's only when a movie like Toy Story 3 is clearly the best, like one of the best films of the year, that they're forced to do it. But the whole reason the Academy, I believe, created that Best Animated category was so that they could just sweep movies like Coco over there and say, okay, we don't have to worry about it. It's getting an Oscar nomination. We don't have to worry about any blowback for not nominating it for Best Picture. I absolutely believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that if there was no Best Animated category, I do believe Coco would have gotten some serious consideration for a nomination for Best Picture. That's just my thought. Joe Raposo writes, hey, John, so any news of the half live action, half animated remake of Secret of NIMH? Oh, I haven't even thought about that for years. I remember they mentioned that like a year or 2 or 3 years ago. I completely lost track of time. And I've totally forgot about it. So no, off the top of my head, I cannot think of any others off the top of my head. All right, guys, I'm going to have to cut it off there. We've gone way over the hour. So don't worry, guys. There's only about 6 or 7 other remaining questions. Don't worry, guys. I'll get to those remaining questions that came in first thing on tomorrow's show. And there's only about 5 or 6 of them, so it's not going to be like the 30 that I had to answer today. Thank you, guys, for joining me here today for this installment of Open Mic. I love doing these shows. Don't forget, if you want to send in a video or an audio question, just email them to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com, and make sure you put the word Open Mic in the subject line and keep your video or audio file to under 20 seconds. Thanks a lot for joining me here today, guys. My name's John Campea. Thanks a lot, and until next time, bye-bye.